Hello everyone, this is Paul Combs. Glad you could join us today. We had a couple of technical problems when we did the webinar before, but so we wanted to do it again, and again hopefully we'll have worked through those technical problems. So I'm glad you could join us. We're talking about the FileViewer today. The FileViewer is our tool to let our researchers be able to look at records that go far beyond our current records back to the 1800s. And within our service that we provide, we have a lot of different users that use our FileViewer. Some of these folks are title plant managers that are operating title agencies, also title abstractors that perhaps are independent researchers or those that work for title companies. Also, we have title examiners that are using our service. These are the people that work within the title agencies. Also, we have many oil and gas landmen that use the FileViewer, and a lot of right-of-way agents that are trying to determine surface ownership and also easements are using us. And we have a lot of attorneys and other legal professionals, and also we do have a lot of genealogists who may be looking for records back in the 1800s to run some kind of history on a family. And so now we do have
ground ball right side into the shift to his left outfield. He has it throw right on to first, and the Houston Astros World Series champions. Who would have ever believed for the first time in franchise history? The relievers are racing in for the bullpen, and the Astros have done it. The Astros are World Series champions for the first time in 1 and 7.
Well, I told you we were having some technical problems, and that's actually running on a loop in our office. As you might think, we're from Houston, and so we're very proud of our Astros down here. But let's get back to the FileViewer. So the FileViewer is the largest repository of historical and current documents and indexes in the state of Texas. And this accumulation of records that we have here is information that we've acquired over the last 25 years. And so our company's been around since 1982, and back in the late 80s we started acquiring data. And so where does the data come from? Well, it comes from county clerk's offices, where we go in and actually scan these older books. We also go into title companies and scan their records. And so and when we go into a title company, a lot of the title companies will have their information on cards or on tract books or large format drawings. So this is a picture of a title company title plant where we've gone in and scanned their records that are in the card files. And to be able to scan all these records, it requires acquiring a lot of records. So you can see these big tractor trailer trucks here full of documents, full of boxes, where we've gone in and picked up all the boxes, brought them to our office, and essentially about a quarter of our building downstairs was filled with boxes stacked 5 and 6 feet high. And so this is when your wife kills you for bringing in too many boxes. But to be able to do all the scanning that we do requires a certain process. So first of all, we typically will inventory the information that we're going to be scanning. Then we start the scanning process using different kind of scanning tools. So we have, in some cases, we have these large format scanners, or we have these high production scanners, and we also have cameras that we use to do the scanning. And the data that we're acquiring could be in a lot of different formats. It could be on microfilm or microfiche or paper, so a lot of different formats. And then once we scan those records, then we have to post-process those records. So for instance, you may scan a document that has a black border around it. Well, if we kept the black border on the page, that would consume so much space that it would be hard to move the information over the internet. So we have to do this post-processing, and then once we've done the post-processing, then we need to index those records so that we can make them usable and easy for the customer to use. And then once we've indexed those records, we have a quality control process to make sure that we are not missing any pages. Of course, we're dealing with millions and millions of pages, so it's not uncommon that you might run across a document from time to time that might be missing a page, but these are the same documents that we use for our business, so we are making every effort possible to be able to find every record. And the types of records that we're scanning could be deed records, and then also mineral records, and also subdivision plats. And it's really important when you think about subdivision plats that we get every little pen stroke that's on the plat. So the quality of the images is very important to us and very important to our users. So again, if I'm a surveyor, I'm going to want to know every little pen stroke that's on there. And then another part of what we do is scan what we call starter files, or might also be known as prior title commitments. So because we own a title company or a title agency, and we do research for other title agencies, then we want to know what are the deed restrictions and the easements that affect this particular lot within this subdivision. Well, in the title insurance world, it's very likely that someone has done some research in that particular subdivision before, and when we pull up a starter file or a prior commitment, the first thing we kind of focus in on is the date of the document itself. So in this case, it's August 28th of 1985. Well, we know that we need to, if we're relying on this information or using this information, we know that we're going to need to run the title forward from there to look for any more recent deed restrictions. And as you see down the page, you'll see that number 2 down below, it says these are the deed restrictions that affect this property. So again, if someone has already done research in this area and we can look at 2 or 3 different starter files or commitments, then we'll see that, oh, well, it looks like all of these agree and that these deed restrictions apply. So again, it's just a way to save time. Another type of record that we scan, of course, are title plants, which are sometimes on tract books or in cards. So in this case, we're looking at a tract book that's in Travis County. So as we look at the tract book, what we're looking at is the volume from the left going to the right is the volume and page recording of the document itself, and then the date of the document, and then the date the document was filed. Typically, you'll see those dates that are pretty close to each other. Of course, if you're buying a piece of property, you want to make sure that once you buy the property, you file that document as early as possible in the courthouse. You don't want to have much lag time there because you're at risk if you do. So, and then we have, of course, listing the grantors, the grantees, and then the type of document that's being filed. And then each of these columns are the lot numbers. So if we track the lot numbers across down the columns, we'll see this is the activity on that particular tract number. If we move all the way to the right, we will see a lot of times a reference number back to a prior deed or maybe a prior mortgage or something like that. So part of the title plants that we're scanning, some of these are subdivisions like you saw in the previous slide, but in some cases we're working out of a survey. So in this case, what we have is a tract that I've circled, which is labeled tract number 2B2F. Well, at one time, this whole area may have been identified as tract 2, and then a portion of it was broken out, and that was labeled as tract 2B. And then another piece was broken out, and it was labeled 2B2. And then in this case, it's 2B2F. So you'll kind of see the numberings and how I've highlighted them there. So essentially, when we're running title in this area, we'll be able to look in column number 2, and then we'll see how that's been broken out into some other records. So in this case, we're looking at a abstract number 346, and we see that there's a column 2. We would follow that column down and look for any kind of activity. What we typically are able to get out of these tract books plants, and again, these have been a lot of times in people's families for 100 years, but what we're looking for is data that takes us all the way back to sovereignty. I really started as an oil and gas landman, so I know that if you have 30 or 40 years of records, that's great, but if you have records that go back to sovereignty, then of course that's what everyone's looking for particularly if you're running title for oil and gas. In this case, we'll see that there's a patent that was filed through the state of Texas, and where it's recorded in the courthouses looks like a volume 103, page 579. Another type of plant that we scan are card plants. So we'll go into a county into a title company, and we'll work with that title company owner. And what we'll do typically is we'll organize all of those cards and kind of double check that they're in good, proper order, and then we'll go in and scan those cards. And typically, once a title company has scanned all of their cards, it's like they never pull the drawer open anymore, because the efficiency of being able to look at these cards is much more efficient than having to get up and pull the card drawer out and then stack the cards in front of you. The beauty of this, of course, is that once you scan those cards, then they never get out of order anymore. And of course, this is important as a way to preserve your data. So we're all anywhere, we're all subject to flooding, or we're subject to hurricanes or tornadoes. So you know, if you were to lose this very precious asset, which is all the work that's been accumulated over the years, that would be terrible. So if you were to acquire this data, and it's kind of interesting, just even looking at this one card, you'll see where someone has gone to some links when they are typing the card to point out the different surveys that these particular properties fall in. They also are referencing other information within the survey or within this particular document, which is a reference to an assignment of an oil and gas lease. So, and then again, when we're scanning these records, there's different types of formats that we're scanning. In this case, these are microfiche cards that we're scanning. And so we think the keys to what we're doing here is, number one, that we're providing more data. So we have what we consider to be an unsurpassed depth of data in the databases that we create. And when we go into a courthouse, you know, first job for us to do is to go back and scan all the handwritten grantor grantee indexes and all the indexes for the oil and gas records, all the indexes for the mortgage records. So getting the indexes is part of the key here. And then, of course, getting copies of all the documents going all the way back to sovereignty. Also, too, we have been on a very aggressive mode of scanning as many courthouses as we can, and we have now over 150 counties where we have data in the counties. Some of these counties we have pretty much every piece of paper in the county, and then other counties we've started on, you know, getting the grantor grantee indexes, perhaps getting the deed records and the oil and gas records, and then we're working on getting the additional records too. And so to find these records on Courthouse Direct is pretty easy. You just look along the left-hand side. You'll see a button there that says Historical Deeds and Plats. That will take you straight to the historical records. We also have a tab at the top that says Real Property Documents. And when you look in the Real Property Document tab, you'll see a button there that says Historical Documents. That will take you to this page, what we call a FileViewer information page. And on this page, we give some information about the FileViewer and how it operates, cost of accessing the FileViewer. And as you can see down below, we also have some buttons there, which are samples of the different records that we have within the FileViewer. And so if I flip to the next page, you'll see there's an area on this website or on this web page that says, do we have what you need? Now, that's kind of a critical area on the site, because sometimes you might visit a county or want to go to a county and you're wondering, what do they have in this county? Well, you can click on that area that says, what do we need? And this is the first page that will come up. And essentially what we're doing is we're down below, you'll see these are all the different records that we have in that particular county. And if you notice that we have some definitions, if you will, of the different types of records that we have within the FileViewer. Some of those are labeled as deeds, and anything that's labeled as deeds actually represent documents themselves. Now, it may be, you may see something labeled as deeds, and then oil and gas records. Essentially what we're saying is that that's a document image. Instead of writing out the word document image in the FileViewer, we just use the terminology deeds, but essentially it's a document that essentially you're looking for. Also, too, another category, if you will, is grantor grantee indexes. And again, to abbreviate grantor grantee, we just use the terminology GG. And again, GG could be a grantor grantee index for oil and gas records, or an index for probate records, or an index for mortgage records. So keep in mind you see GG, that represents an index. And then also too, another type of record that we have are probate records. I'll tell you that with probates are kind of a tricky thing, because we'll go into a county and you'll see a whole wall of probate minutes on the wall. And the economics of going in and scanning all of those probate images and selling those and hoping that, you know, we'd make our money back on that effort is not very good. So what we do try to do whenever we go into a county, though, is get our hands on the probate indexes and scan all those indexes and then make those available. So as a landman, if you see, oh, here's a probate that I know I need to look at, and I know where that probate is filed in the record, then it's fairly easy to be able to just go call the clerk, have them send you that will or that document you're looking for, or if you go into the courthouse, to be able to go straight to whatever those records are. Also, too, we have a lot of maps online. So these maps are the recorded subdivision plats in the counties, and we'll see more of that in just a little bit. But it's critical to us whenever we go into a county to, beyond scanning the deeds and the indexes, is to scan the plats too, because typically, whether you're a surveyor or anyone else, if you want to know what's going on in that area and the area is recorded, then certainly you need to look at the copy of the subdivision plats. There are some counties that have what we call tax cards that will, in some cases, give you a history of the deeds to the property. And so the ones that come to mind are Tarrant County, Jefferson County, Montgomery County, where if you go to these tax cards or these tax books, then you'll see this was a taxpayer. Sometimes give you some historical information too on who the taxpayer was, but also will give you some abbreviated chain of title, which again, as a researcher, we're always looking for those clues or those shortcuts, if you will, to be able to kind of get started and kind of get the ball rolling. Also too, you'll see some of the categories listed as plant. Well, if it's listed as a plant, that means it's a geographically indexed title plant, one that we've built or one that has been built by a company that's been in business for a number of years. Now, on your regular subscription to the FileViewer, you will not always see the word plant. A plant is an additional subscription that you would need to be able to look at those historical records, and certainly just reach out to our customer service group at information@courthousedirect.com if you're inquiring about whether or not we have a title plant in a county. But to know that, we can go to the next slide here, which this is the home page for the FileViewer. And when we go to the home page, we'll see that the very first folder at the top is the Starter Basis Plats Master folder. Now, some people overlook that particular folder because they may not understand exactly what it is, but if you're in the land title business, then pretty much all of our title insurance companies know that folder very well. Because when you go into the folder, first of all, you'll see the list of counties where we have some starter files and plats, and you'll see that there is a folder at the top there that says additional counties. So if you don't see a county that you're interested in, you might click on that additional county button and see those additional counties where we have data in. We are in the process of moving those counties into this one list here instead of breaking those separately, but right now we do have an area that we call additional counties. So when you look at these into the starter files, you'll typically see two folder names. One will say subdivision and the other will say survey. Well, the likelihood you're going to land on that particular acreage tract, that's that survey name or acreage amount, is pretty much kind of a bit of a shot in the dark. But as it relates to subdivisions, and we know that at least in the title insurance world, 90% or more of the transactions are subdivisions, you can use this as your tool to be able to drill down to see if there's any starter files in that particular subdivision. And you could also use this kind of like a map index, if you will. If you'll notice, as you kind of look at this list of subdivision names, next to that will be the volume and page recording where that's located in the plat records. So just kind of keep that in mind, that if you're kind of wondering what is that volume and page recording of the plat, you can use this as kind of another tool to be able to find that. So in this case, we might be looking for Timber Grove Manor, Section 4, and you'll see some things are labeled as a plat, and then other things are labeled as a commitment. So the plat is just the recorded subdivision plat, and then the other is the list of commitments that we have in this particular subdivision, or in this particular section of the subdivision. And let's say, for instance, you're running title on lot 26. Well, you would probably want to pull the title commitment on lot 27 versus the title commitment on lot 10, just because lot 26 most likely is going to be right next door to your lot 27. And if there's some easement or something that runs along the back of those properties, then you're probably going to see that on lot 27, where you may not see that on lot 10. So again, you click on the plat, you see the plat itself. It's important, of course, that when we scan these records, to find all the dedicating language of the plat, and again, make these as legible as they can be. And then we click on the title commitment, and we look at Schedule A. Again, we focus on the date of the Schedule A. We're saying, okay, the date is October 28, 1997. So whatever information I'm able to gain from this particular starter file, I'll know I need to run title forward from, at least look for deed restrictions, if you will, from 1997 forward. And so what we're all, of course, interested in whenever we're looking at these prior commitments is we're looking for Schedule B. On Schedule B, you'll typically see a reference to the subdivision plat itself, which is, in this case, volume 387, page 116, because there is dedicating language in the plat that may affect or restrict the property in some ways, particularly as it relates to building lines and things that are shown typically on the plat and easements. So, and then broken out from that are the different deed restrictions that might affect that particular subdivision. So you see a whole list here of deed restrictions that affected the subdivision. Typically, there's the master deed restrictions when the plat's filed, and then if there's any kind of amendments to the deed restrictions, you'll see those coming later, or perhaps there might be some kind of management certificate or something like that you'd want to make sure you note on your Schedule B of your title policy. So what's really important to us, and I've said this already, is that we get a copy of the actual grantor grantee indexes in the counties that we're working in. The grantor grantee indexes, even if we have an electronic grantor grantee index online, or if we have a title plan online, it really helps, I think, to know that you can use this as a backup. You never know when you're trying to read a document and it's referring to the parties, and you can read those very clearly, but whoever typed the deed or oil and gas lease, whatever it might be, perhaps they transposed a number, and you need to go back and confirm whatever that volume and page is, and to have those grantor grantee indexes readily available in the counties is very helpful. And in this case, every county is a little bit different in the way that they're indexing these records, but if you look kind of from left to right, the first column is the kind of instrument or type of instrument, and then the date of the filing of the document itself. These are the parties, again, the grantors, the grantees, the date of the instrument. Again, typically those are pretty close in time, and then the volume and page recording of the document itself. And in this case, it looks like the subdivision and then the lot and block number have been broken out into separate columns. You don't always see that, but in this case, they have broken them out. You'll also see there's a column here for acreage, and then that refers back to a particular survey that the property came out of. And then this is Reeves County, where I'm running, let's say, a reverse index. I know that I'm looking in between 1929 to 1935, and I know the name that I'm looking for. It starts with the letter A. Then I can just flip through these pages under the letter A and then find whatever it is I might be looking for. So from here, again, Potter County is a little different in that they actually show in that very left-hand column the clerk file number of the document that was filed. You don't always see that in the grantor grantee indexes. It's nice when they put it in there, but we know that when we hand a document across the counter, immediately that document is stamped with a clerk file number, and then later it's put into a book that's assigned a volume and page number. But having that clerk file number does tell you at least gives you another reference point, if you will. Again, this particular county does break out the lot and block numbers for for the subdivision, but you'll see the way they index the date of the instrument and the date of the filing is a little bit different in this particular index. So again, the type of records that we have here are deed records. This is Chambers County. The way they're numbering these are a little bit different in that what they're telling us is that the document was filed in 1989. The volume is volume 98. Page number is number 97. So this is a little unusual. Typically, you're just going to see a volume and page number without a year in front of it, but in Chambers County, they do it a little bit differently. Now, I kind of ran across this document. I thought it was kind of interesting in that this document was filed in 2 counties. So if we're looking at that M number, M127487, that's a clerk file number for Harris County. But the document was also filed in Chambers County with that volume 89, page 77, page 1. Well, in a lot of cases, you'll see where if the document has 2 file numbers on it, they'll circle the file number, the new clerk, if you will circle the file number of the old clerk, just so it doesn't get kind of mixed up, and then they'll stamp their own file number on the document itself. So again, you'll have some documents that are filed in multiple counties, and this is a case of that. So again, another thing that we're always looking to get whenever we're scanning these records is to get the copies of the plats. If the plats are broken down into multiple pages, then we're going to make an effort to make sure that we pick up all those multiple pages too. And then, as I mentioned, the other thing that we do is try to get our hands on the probate indexes. The probate indexes, in this case, you can see this is a pretty, even by the handwriting, you can almost tell that's kind of an old record. But you'll see if I'm looking for, in this case, a K.S. Boone, where it's kind of written large there. That's recorded in a volume 2, page 108 through 111 of the probate records of this county. So even though you don't have the actual book itself, you know where it's recorded, and you would be able to reach out to the clerk to be able to get your hands on that particular document. What we are working on is to go through and key into an electronic format these older probate indexes. Again, we always like to keep the actual original when we can, but again, part of what we try to do is make an effort to make this digital, but we're coming off of a handwritten record to a digital record. So let's get to work. I want to just jump into the FileViewer. And so let's go ahead and let me minimize this, and let's look at the FileViewer. Now, I've already opened some folders, and I'm just going to start from the top and then kind of work our way down. So again, as I mentioned, you'll see the starter basis master folder. You'll see that button that says additional counties, and as I click on that, you'll see a list of these additional counties that, and in fact, some of these counties do have a lot of starter files in them. It's just they're in this kind of extra, other layer of information that we have here, and so that was because at one time maybe we didn't have a lot of starters, and then we ended up having more starters, and that's the reason that we did that. But let's go down and look at Dallas County, and you'll see in Dallas County we're in a subdivision, and we're looking for a subdivision we call, let's say, Galloway Place. So if I scroll down here to Galloway, and then I see Galloway Place, then I want to look at the plat that's in Galloway Place. To the right, you'll see Galloway Place plat showing up on here. If I want to zoom into the map, then I can just use the tools at the top to be able to zoom in, or if I want to flip the image around, I have the choice to be able to do that. And also, too, here's a list of the commitments. So as we're looking at this commitment, what we're focusing in on this particular document is that volume and page recording of the deed restrictions and whatever other citations that we're looking at within that deed restriction. And then we look at another commitment, and if we're pulling up from one commitment to another, the same information, then we can feel pretty good that we are finding everything that affects the property. These commitments are actually pretty affordable to download. So it's $2 to view the document, another $1 to download the document. And let's say, for instance, I'm a land surveyor, and I know that I'm going to be surveying a piece of property in this subdivision, and I'm waiting for the title company to send me a copy of the commitment. I might want to go ahead and pull up these records and identify these on the map, and then when I get my commitment from the title company, I can kind of match this and say, well, I didn't find anything new from the new commitment, and so therefore I can go ahead and get my drawing out the door. So rather than waiting for the title company to send that to you, you can use this as a shortcut to be able to get whatever it is you're looking for. And again, as I mentioned, you can use this use these records as a map index. So if you're looking for a particular volume page recording or trying to find the volume page recording of a plat, you can use that here. Now, if you notice, I am kind of going back and I'm closing out these folders, and I'm going back to the to subdivision and survey. Again, as I mentioned, surveys are a little bit of a shot in the dark. I mean, the likelihood that you're going to find that particular 42 acre tract that Claude Hudson owned out of this particular survey and that you're running title on, that's a great thing if you do hit on it, and then it's worth finding that. But again, the likelihood you're going to find that particular commitment in here is worth looking for, but I just wouldn't want to bet the ranch on it. But when you do hit it, of course, it's valuable. Now, you will notice that I'm talking about title commitments and I'm talking about starter files. There's different kind of records that are in here. In this case, this is called a title opinion, which maybe was something that was in preparation to issuing a title commitment or a title policy. You'll see attorney title opinions. You'll see different kinds of records like that. I would probably even argue that some of the title work that was done years past might kind of really hold up to the more recent title work that you get. But again, just closing out of here, going back, closing out of my folders, just so I don't have to. So I'll keep at least my folders as minimal as possible. So let's look here. We are in Brazos County, and for instance, in Brazos County, let's say I'm looking for the name Brown in 1956. Well, I've got a folder here which is 1956 to 1958. I can look at the index itself and see that Brown would be located under page number 33. So I'm just going to scroll down. We've done this sub-indexing for you to be able to get to whatever it is you're looking for. I kind of recommend sometimes to maybe even look at the page before and then jump into the next page, and then from here you can find whatever the record is. I see Brown listed here, and then you've got the given name of the parties, and then you would scroll through this and find whatever the records are that you're looking for. Again, you're building a chain of title. One thing to keep in mind too is that when you're using the FileViewer, you're not being charged for viewing these pages within the indexes that we have. You are charged when you're viewing deeds and mortgages and plats, but you're not charged to just view the indexes themselves. So let me just kind of scroll back up, and then I'm going to close out this folder, and then from here you can see the different records that we have in Brazos County. So again, when we go into the courthouse, we're not only scanning the deeds and the mortgages, but we're scanning pretty much every piece of paper. So if I'm an oil and gas landman and I'm doing a drill site opinion, and there's a citation to even a federal tax lien or a bill of sale or something like that, well, I'm going to want to look at those documents. So we know that as researchers, and we're all title researchers in our company. So we know that when we go in and scan records in a county, we need to make sure that we get our hands on every document we can, and hopefully that's reflected by just the different documents that you see here. So let's kind of keep drilling down, and we'll look at Harris County. And in Harris County, let's say we're looking for someone named Frank Burke in the year 1904 to 1910, and we know that by looking at the index, it's pointing us to a page number 243. So as I kind of scroll down here, you'll see kind of that left number is the page number, and then the sub-page, if you will. So there's, if I look at 243, there's 1 through 15. So there's 15 243. So if I just go into 243, again, you can see the little index at the top that tells you this is the given name, which is, let's say, Frank Burke. I would know that I'm in the B's. I'm looking for Frank. It's 243. I'm on 243. And as I look down here, I can see Frank Burke, Frank Burke, Frank Burke. And then let's say, for instance, I know that I'm looking for a volume. Let's see, look at these. I've got an affidavit, and then I've got these power of attorneys, and then I've got a quitclaim deed from Burke, and it looks like that's a volume 168, page 637. It deals with a 40-acre tract that's out of this, looks like the James Strange survey, and then I'd want to go look at that document. So again, here we're going to just scroll back up. I'm going to close out of this folder, close out, and now I want to look for my deeds. So if I look at the deeds, this is volume A through 3733. It's labeled as multi-page, and that's significant because whenever we go in and scan records, we are starting out with single-page images, and we need to turn those into multi-page images. So I'm looking for a volume 168, page 637. You can see the first record there is a volume A in Harris County, but I'm looking for volume 168, and I'm looking for page number 637. Of course, I would pick one at the very bottom here, but let's look for 637, and there's 637. Now you see there it's 637 and then 637-1. Well, you can have more than one document on a page. So in this case, I'm looking at this document from William Dunn to a Frank Burke. That's a quitclaim deed. And again, it looks like it covers this 40 acres of land. And then it has a reference back to another deed that I could go back and pull that prior deed if I wanted to. And then they describe the property. And if we look down at the bottom here, we'll see that, that there's another document that's on the page that's starting here and ending on another page. So if I click on the 637-1, then essentially I know that that's the first of this document and the rest of this other document that's on here. And so there is a lot of work that goes into creating these multi-page stapled documents. Again, this is going through every single page and essentially creating an additional page, stapling those together, and then putting those back into the index itself. Now, again, I'm in Harris County. Harris County, you'll notice we have a lot of different types of documents here in Harris County. Again, we have the Grantor grantee indexes, and then we have condo records and City of Houston file room records, commissioners court records, and so we don't stop just at typically just the deed records if we can. If there's other records that are helpful, we're going to go find those. Another record that is used widely is our City of Houston construction drawings. If I'm an engineer and I'm trying to as-built drawing in an area, then you can go through and find that particular as-built to be able to do that. I mentioned that we do have also, when you see within the FileViewer something labeled as the plat, that is a titled plat that a lot of times was created over many years. So in this case, let's say we're looking for abstract number 311. Let's just go to the first page of 311. We'll see the different kind of hand-sketched drawing here. You'll see these kind of numbers that are identifying the different tract numbers on the page. You'll see number 2, tract number 1, and again, we're just flipping through, getting ready to run title on the properties. So we're looking for these tract numbers. This tract number is tract number 7, and again, just working our way through until we get to the first page of the actual title plan itself. And again, this is the first page of the title plan. Now, if we look at this first page, we'll see the first record that we're finding here is 1837, and then we see the first deed out is a reference volume G, looks like page 540, and that was in 1842. And you'll see pretty much the entire survey is being sold at that time because the indexer put all, But let's say, for instance, we're interested in tract number 7. Well, if I'm interested in tract 7, I'm going to concentrate on column number 7, and then I'm just going to scroll down column number 7, and the first breakout of the first deed is, it looks like 1871. Also within that column 7, you'll see tract number 27 and tract number 47. So you have to kind of pay attention to whether it's that particular tract you're looking for. And from here, I would just kind of flip through the tracts and look for, again, concentrating on that column number, which is tract number 7, and then making a note of the different records that are there. There are these are identified with different abbreviations, if you will, for the different docket types. Of course, anything labeled with a deed would be a deed, and then you see power of attorney here, and then you see some kind of a lawsuit that was filed here, and then this particular tract 7 I see has this is kind of a little bit unusual one, but it's a suit to try a title is what that means right there. So again, that's a lawsuit. It's involving all of these different properties, and again, you kind of learn your way around with these different abbreviations. But and you'll also notice on the left-hand side that in this case things are labeled by the clerk file number, and then they are also labeled with the volume and page recording where they're filed in the deed record or the contract records or whatever it might be. And in this page you can see that a lot of these are labeled with a DU, that means Dupree, and then as you move down there's another label here that has the letter J, and that means Jones. Well, in Harris County, the way that properties were labeled was by whoever was in office as the county clerk at that time. So if I kind of back up again out of the plant, and then I go back up to the index itself, there's the Harris County conversion. So you'll see in Harris County you had a county clerk that was in office from 1890 to 1894, Winkler, and then you had Dupree, and then on this case you can see where it went from Dupree to Jones. So after 1904, then Jones took over, and then you had all the different county clerks there. So you need to sometimes be able to go into a particular set of numbers here and then convert those back, because perhaps the volume and page number was not listed, so you need to pick up that volume and page number to be able to find and pull the deed that you're looking for. So this is, again, Harris County. I backed all the way out of Harris County. Let me make sure I close all my folders just to make my life easy here. There we go. And let's keep scrolling down. Now let's go to Reeves County. And in Reeves County, what we're looking for is something under the letter B, and let's say we're looking for someone named Barbie. So now in Reeves County, you'll see that everything is kind of indexed by just the letter of the alphabet, because the county was just not a huge county. A lot of more recordings now with oil and gas activity, but let's say all your A's are going to end here on 42, and then 43s we're going to start with the letter B. So again, what we're looking for is somebody named, let's say, Barbie, or one of those names. And again, as we're looking through here, we're going to find whatever it is we're looking for. Or let's just look at this record. It looks like now that's a funny name, Dimple Barton. It looks like he sold to a David Mata. This is a warranty deed that was filed in 1959. It was dated, the day of the instrument was on the 14th, filed the next day on the 15th, and this is parts of the original town of Pecos in a volume 192, page 118. So again, from here, we just go back. I want to go to 192, what did I say, 192, 118. So again, just backing up. Now I want to go to 192, 118. And let's look at 118. And there's our friend, Mr. Dimple Barton, selling to Daniel Mata in a warranty deed. And again, there's our document we're looking for. So as people that have worked in courthouses, what we kind of resolved kind of early on is that we didn't want to get too fancy in the way that we're indexing these records. If I'm a landman, I want to use these tools just like I would as if I was standing in the courthouse. We kind of came up with a thing where you could put in the last name of the party, and then kind of jumps you down to that page. And kind of as we built that, we said, you know what, landmen don't really want that. They want to feel like they're standing in the courthouse, pulling the book off the shelf, feeling confident that they've got all the records that are indexed, and making sure that they're able to pull every document they're looking for. And again, just like we showed you in Harris County, you can see all the different types of documents in this particular county, everything from list pendants to federal tax liens to declarations of informal marriages. Again, wherever we can get our hands on any of these records, we're going to get our hands on them and make them available to you. So let's go out of Reeves County, and let's go into Wise County. I want to go into Wise County because in Wise County, this is where we scan to track a card plan. So in this case, we're looking for the G. Hamrick survey. It's abstract 1483. Let's go to the first page of that, and we see the first record that we're seeing is in 1957. Looks like an oil and gas lease from Hamrick to a Lone Star Producing Company. And again, you'll see the different notations that the keyer put in there. In fact, they even showed you the term of the lease. It's a 3-year lease. So again, as we scroll through these, just flipping our pages, going through the next page, what was that? They might even show a little bit of a title chain here. But so we're just scrolling through this, and again, the fact that these cards have been scanned, that means they are not going to get out of order. And again, someone has put in, these look like a kind of more recent survey or more recent records, but you know, if you can have these cards in front of you, you can flip through them almost quicker than you could if they were sitting in front of you as a physical card. And again, for the people that own these title plants that we've been able to work out these arrangements with, they like it because they're able to keep their data in proper order and not have to worry about, you know, a landman maybe walking out with a card or, you know, inadvertently not putting things back where, you know, where they should have. So again, there's value to having scanned these records and then making those available. I've tried my best to keep our this demonstration as short as possible. Again, that's probably the reason I was speaking as fast as I was, and hopefully you were able to pick up everything that we talked about. The reason that, again, that I made this recording this morning is to share this with you and certainly share this with your staff and other people that you know that are looking for historical records. We want to be a resource for you. Anywhere we can help you do your job better, and then you can help us make suggestions as to how we can do a better job for you, please let us know. The thing I didn't hit on, and let me go ahead and do that because this is critical, is that within these records are the plat records. So in Harris County, if I were looking for a plat and I knew the volume and page recording of the plat, and again, you could do this through the starter files, but not all counties have starter files. But if I knew that what I was looking for was volume 202, page 1 of the map records, I can go in here and see, well, there's the map records. Harris County is interesting in that they, because these were originally on hard copy paper, they wanted to blow these, and on microfilm, they wanted to blow these images up, so they created these separate pages. So essentially you can look at a blown up image by flipping through the second pages. So this plat, you'll see we're on page 3 of 5, and then you can just flip through all the 5 pages and you know that I've looked at the entire plat. So this makes it really easy to be able to get to the plat that you're looking for when we have these things broken down. Plats are a little tricky in every county, so how we index something in Harris County might be a little different than you might see in a Montgomery County or in a Glasscock County or something like that. But again, one question I know that we did get in our original webinar is there overlap between the data? And we know as researchers, overlap's not a bad thing. I mean, we'd certainly rather have too much than not enough. And so if we have an electronic, whether it's an electronic Grantor Grantee index or electronic title plant, but we also have these back plants or these handwritten Grantor Grantee indexes, that's not a bad thing. So what we always try to do is make sure that overlap's good, any kind of gaps is bad. So we want our first goal always is to make sure we have no gaps. And so And so, that is a strong effort on our part to make sure that we don't have any gaps. You're able to go in with confidence, find the information that you need, do the job that you need to do effectively. So again, appreciate y'all taking the time to listen today. I hope you go out and have a great day, and look forward to visiting with you again. Our customer service manager is Zach White. You can always reach Zach by either customerservice@courthousedirect.com or information@courthousedirect.com. And Zach's direct line number for you is 713-683-4050. My direct line number is 713-683-4012. If we can help you in any way, just please let us know, and I hope, again, you have a good day today. Thanks.